Integritas Leadership, Whole and Complete with Barry Berman, and it's subtitled An Easier Way to Be an Extraordinary You. This is what has my attention. What is leadership? And what is the nature of leadership on the court as distinct from observing leaders, studying leaders, their traits and characteristics? Today we're talking with Barry Berman from IntegritasConsult.com, and we're going to be talking about the 4 pillars, the foundational elements. Number 1, being real and authentic. Number 2, your willingness to be responsible for everything in your life, and you give up the right to blame anyone else. Number 3, being committed to something much bigger than what satisfies you, your concerns, and what you're out for. Number 4, integrity. The organization is whole and complete and honors what it is presenting out to the public and standing by what it offers its employees and vendors and others who interact with the organization. Well, Barry, welcome to What Has My Attention podcast.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Now, did you see the little red light or something that said recording?
Yeah, it's right up on the left side.
So be careful what you say.
I promise.
So Barry and I have known each other, I don't know, probably a year or something like that. And we actually met through Lon and Sandy Golnick at Relationship by Design.
Yes.
So anyway, because you've been a huge supporter of them and you're in Colorado. Whereabouts in Colorado are you?
I'm near Boulder, Colorado. Currently, I'm in an office in Louisville, Colorado.
Nice. Very nice. So to let everybody know, to find out more about Barry in terms of his, his bio and everything else, just go to IntegritasConsult.com. Is that correct, Barry?
Yeah, and right on the screen, spelt that way in one word.
Yeah. How'd you come up with that name? That's interesting.
I looked it up. I looked up the word integrity, and it was a Roman soldier statement. They went Integritas, which meant whole and complete. That's what this word is about, integrity, this work.
Whole and complete.
Yeah.
We've had some conversation. You recommended you really wanted to talk about leadership, though, today, right?
Yes. One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, nice. So why is it so favorite to you?
Well, before I say that, I just wanted to say a lot of these ideas are from 3 or 4 people who have been working on this. That is Werner Erhard, Mike Jensen, and Steve Zaffron. Mm-hmm. Just attributed to a lot of the ideas that they've come up with, and then, of course, my own take on such things. Mm-hmm. But leadership is very interesting. If you look up on Amazon, John, there are at least 30,000 books on leadership development, which then keys me to think, maybe people don't know that much about what leadership is if there's that many books. Mm-hmm. There may be actually more. So it suggests to me maybe people don't know anything about it. There probably ought to be 1 or 2 books that you read them and you actually be a leader.
Yeah.
And that's not the case, my understanding. So that's how I...
Do you have any favorite books on Amazon?
Oh, on Amazon and leadership?
Or just, it doesn't have to be on Amazon, but just
on leadership alone. Leadership in the New Science, that's an older book from the 1990s. And there are other ones. Well, of course, Excellence. I can't remember their names now, where they studied companies that were extraordinary. It's interesting enough, those same companies years later were not extraordinary anymore. So something happened.
Have you followed Simon Sinek by any chance?
I have not.
He's got a whole different take on it, which is really that just because you have authority doesn't make you a leader.
Right.
And then a leader is actually someone who is basically in charge of helping other people help other people.
Yes.
So talk to me more about your take on leadership. What is leadership?
Well, there's a program we offer called Being a Leader and the Effective Exercise of Leadership, which addresses the whole area of leadership. But most of the development programs out there and there are many very, very good ones, are designed to study and investigate and look into the traits, the characteristics, John, the attributes, the mentoring of awesome, great leaders that you may know, like in the business world, or people like Gandhi or Martin Luther King, to study and see what it takes to be a leader like them. The only problem is that's kind of like being up in the stands watching a football game. What's going up on the stand, up in the stands is a lot different than what's going on in the field. What you observe, what you see there is not actually what's going on in the game. And we were looking at it. Well, what is it? What is leadership really on the court when you are confronted by dealing with a situation? You don't have time to think about what a great leader has to do, or let's say you're in the battlefield, which I've never been in. So I've seen lots of World War II movies and naval movies. And, you have to be effective in the moment. You've got to be free to take action, to think in new ways, to explore, to lead others, and sometimes commanding them, let alone trying to enroll them in doing something. You don't have time to figure it out. You'll die if you're figuring it out. Yeah. In that context.
So it requires a little bit about being nimble, right? And flexible.
Yes, very nimble and flexible. So when we're looking at the common way, everyday thinking about leadership is, I'm going to use a strange term, epistemological. There's a certain epistemological mastery. That is knowing, knowledge and information. If I give somebody enough knowledge of what a leader is and what a leader should be and how they should behave, they ought to go out there and be a successful leader. But that's not the case. It's probably why there's 33,000 or more books out there, and I don't know how many courses. We come from a different mastery of something I call ontological, which is being on the court. It's the being part of a person, who they're being, what, as compared with knowing about, innovation and leadership.
Are you familiar?
That's a tough one to get at.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the be, have?
Be, do, have.
Be, do, have. So is it along those lines?
It is, because most people, it's the other way around. Let's see. Explain
it to our listeners.
Yeah. Usually it is, well, you do have, I've got to have the right information and the right knowledge and the right skills. And then I would do anything, plumbing, electrical. Then I would be effective and get the thing accomplished. But I think that's a hard road to hoe. It's usually if you are free to be, free to act, the being part of it, and with obviously knowledge that you're going to need, because you just can't just do that. And you get out there and you do the things that come naturally to you, like your own natural self-expression in that area that you are committed to, you'll be a lot more effective. So that's kind of the overall context of what I was coming to talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you more about the 4 foundational elements we've seen to have an extraordinary life, to be a great leader, and even to have great organizations.
Go for it.
So I thought we would discuss that a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first of the 4 is what I would call being real and authentic. Acting, behaving with how you hold yourself out to be in life. And when you're leading, it leaves you being straight with people. What you see is what you get. I'm not hiding anything. I'm telling you exactly how I feel about these things. That doesn't mean you throw up on everybody,
right,
about how you feel and what my internal state's going on. But it's like being straight with people.
You know, I really appreciate that. I have this new business, Imagine Podcasting, started in July 2020, and immediately took on, actually have a bookkeeper. Her name's Jessica Hornbeck. Big Picture Results. There you go, Jessica. You just got a plug. And she's from New York.
Oh, I know that. I'm from there too.
So yeah. So it's like straight shooter. You're going to know exactly what I think about it, how I feel about it. And my creative director is the same. He's from New York. And I love these people because everything is just straight out front, know exactly where they stand on stuff, and they don't hold back. And they're not hostile or angry about any of that kind of stuff at all. They're just straight out, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, one of the things I had to confront in my own life was I noticed I had a certain covert hostility. You know, it would be kind of like I would have a bat behind my back and I would be really angry, but I would cover it up and be nice. But you could read the anger that's behind there.
Sure.
And, you know, being inauthentic is what I would say would be one of the big things that gets in the way of people listening to you, someone I'm going to listen to. You know, covering up something that's happened in my life that I didn't want to happen, or a facade of some kind, or you put it on some face. And, you know, people can read that. They don't know what it is, but they kind of want to stay away from it if they're really in touch with what's really going on.
Yeah, you know, there's this thing that actually Stephanie, my partner, you've spent some time with Steph, something that she said when we both, because we're both born in the same year, it's like when we turned 50, she just looked at me one day and she goes, you know what? At 50, I realize I know what I know what I don't know, and I'm happy to talk about either one.
And now, isn't that great? Isn't that refreshing?
Yes.
And willing to say it like it is, and not, because I think human beings, John, have a pathetic need, and I'm going to say it in that way, to look good. Yeah. To cover it up, we got it at any stake. We have to, you know, be admired and respected, and it's painful to be caught with your pants down, in a sense, you know, inauthentic. So we go to great lengths to hide that stuff. I remember there's a time when I was leading seminars, and it was more about how I presented myself and how I looked, and would I be admired, rather than just telling the truth that I was not having a good day. Yeah.
You know, at the Carlsbad Chamber, we do these First Friday breakfasts, and they bring in an outside speaker. And there's usually 11, maybe 10 or 11 a year, because like December, it's Christmas and we don't do it. But I got to tell you, it's like, I'd say 80 to 90% of the speakers spend the first 10 minutes talking about how great themselves are and everything they've accomplished. The other 20%, and I just like turn off and just pick up a book and read it, and it's kind of where I'm at. But the other 20% that get my attention are the ones that start the story with, 5 years ago, I was living in my car.
And that's real, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And then they take you through the story of how they got from there to where they are today.
Yes. And people can relate to that.
Sure.
I mean, they can see it in their own lives, because, you know, all of us have speed bumps we go through. Some of them have deep troughs they fall in, and sometimes it looks like you can't get out. And being real about that. And you know what it's like. You know, you go to a meeting and you're interacting with someone at an event.
Sure.
And you're talking to someone and you drift off. And then the person who's talking to you says, do you understand just what I said? And you go, yeah. You don't really say it like, hey, I'm sorry, I drifted away. It wasn't personal. Yeah. Well, you know, I've gotten to a place of, if the speaker looked at me and I had drifted because for whatever reason, I would just say, not really. Want to try again? I mean, that's kind of where I've gotten to, you know. It's just like, and let's have fun with this. Let's not be mean or derogatory or anything else, but you're asking, I'm telling. Yeah.
Right. So
that's what it is to be real about where you catch yourself not being real. And just one quote I found, former Medtronic CEO, and I think he's now a Harvard Business School professor, Bill George, his name is. He said, after years of studying leaders and their traits, I believe that leadership begins and ends with authenticity. That's really good.
Yeah. So what we've been talking about, you had mentioned 4 pillars. Is this the like?
I did, yes. And another one is you're willing to be responsible for everything in your life. So it's not the truth that you cause everything to happen. It's just you're willing to come from the perspective that maybe I have something to do with all of it in my life, even the stuff somebody else does to someone else, that you watch someone interact with someone in a way that doesn't work. You're willing to be responsible for it. And I'll tell you what it takes away. It takes away being a victim to anything.
Love it.
And it's a stand you take. It's a place you look out into the world and say, this is where I'm going to come from in life, is I'm going to be responsible for the littlest things, like from the garbage to, I was in a meeting several years ago. It had 400 or 500 people in the meeting. And I noticed in the back of the room, the way they had set up the chairs, if there was some emergency, like a fire in that room, people could not get out of there. So I went to the management and demanded of them, in a very light and enrolling way.
But you're still carrying that bat behind you, right? No.
Right. That's my covert way of doing it.
Yeah.
If I didn't catch myself being that way, yes, I would have been that way. And I asked him, listen, this is a fire hazard, and I know you don't want anybody to be hurt. So you think you could just move the chairs around like that so the entrance is clear and people can get out? He said, hey, thank you very much. I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
And it's little things like that.
Yeah.
So being willing to be cause in the matter really makes a huge difference.
There's another piece I want to see if you agree with, which is that with the exception of a few rare cases, kind of like with what's been going on with, Asians walking down the street and somebody coming up and kicking them and all that,
yeah, I know.
That, and there's certain contexts where that exists, but not including that, I actually think that read a book once called The 4 Agreements, Take Nothing Personally.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, I'm just curious to see if you agree that I've kind of taken this stance that really nobody can do anything to me at all. I'm not a victim. You can't do it to me. I do it to myself. I suffer myself partially by the thoughts I think that you're doing to me.
Yes.
When in fact, it's just not even possible.
That's right. And I didn't mean to interrupt, John.
No, that's fine. That's a conversation.
Well, John, it's not like the truth, but I totally get that that's a stand that you are, that you look out into life, and I'm going to live my life consistent with that perspective and see what happens and see if I have power in life rather than victimized by anything else around me or what people may say or, I think I kind of was naturally growing up that way. I grew up in New York City, and I didn't experience anti-Semitism or any of those things in the neighborhood that I was in. So I guess I was kind of fortunate in that aspect. But there are many other times I was really a victim to what people might say. Some woman, I was a kid in a candy store, and I'm walking into the candy store. She says, "You're ugly," and then walks away. And I go, see, as a kid, that was really painful. But now when I look back, I might have had some power to say, that's not the case. You might be having a bad day, and you just said that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You talking to me? You talking to me?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, New York. I don't know if I ever told you, but I was in New York. I was in New York for 3 days once. I had a software company in Santa Fe, LibreSoft, and we developed the first uniform commercial code software for the banking industry. And I got a call from our marketing people in New York, said that the vice president of Chase wants you here tomorrow to demo the product to them. And I went, what? So anyway, I ended up there. And I was picked up by my attorney who lived in White Plains. And that was an experience because this guy actually put himself through college driving cabs. So he knew how to get around the city fast.
He did. That's right.
But Ed told me, once after Anyway, he just told me, he says, I've really never seen anybody hit the streets in New York City harder than you. I mean, I didn't sleep for 3 days. I absolutely loved New York. I love the culture. I love the people. It was just like, oh my God, the whole world is right here.
It really is, in many different cultures, and it never sleeps.
Yeah, it never sleeps.
24/7.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's changed with COVID.
Well, now, I don't know. I haven't been back, but
yeah.
wow. So this thing about being responsible for all of it as a stand you take, just gives up the right to be a victim to anything.
Mm.
Then you've got power. When you and I live like a victim, like it's being done to us, you lose your power. Power, I mean not force. I mean your ability to really produce something in a very short period of time in an expansive amount. That's real power. Like when Obama became from a senator to president, was very powerful, very quickly.
You said something just really interesting, which is giving up the right to be a victim.
Yeah.
So people do carry that around, right? By God, really, I'm a victim.
Yep. So I'm now going to be forceful and find a way to get back at that which is victimizing me. And whenever you have one position against another, it's kind of like this. And it just adds more of a mass. It's hard to deal with something that is stressful and difficult and
heavy.
But if you're willing to look from the point of view, okay, I'm going to try this on like a stand. I'm going to own all of it. I'm responsible for that happening. It's not true. You get ill or you get cancer. It's not you causing that cancer, but you could come from a place of, let's see, where in my life can I be responsible for having this show up in my life?
So what does responsible or responsibility mean to you?
It means putting aside my internal goings on, my waxing and waning of my state of mind, my feelings, my emotional state, putting all that aside and being willing to be cause in the matter of whatever it is I'm dealing with. And at the same time, being willing to hold others responsible because, there are people, they've chosen to be responsible in their leadership positions and their accountabilities. I can hold them to account for what they said they were going to do. Making them wrong doesn't work.
Right.
Well,
it's interesting because I've always, I heard a definition years ago that I kind of like reflect on often when responsibility comes up is, responsibility is the ability to respond, simply put.
That's it. Brilliantly said. And when you're a victim, you lose that power.
Yeah. And then, of course, the question is, you get to choose how you want to respond.
Yes. Now, you might automatically, because it's given you're human, respond with anger or upset or blame or any of those things. But if you can catch yourself fast enough, you can let that go and be responsible. Many times when I'm in an argument with my wife, I know that she's the problem, not me. And I think we're together 40 years because a lot of the time I'm willing to step back eventually after I walk away because I'm so upset and come back and say, I'm the one who is responsible. I'm taking responsibility for that situation.
Would you describe it then as freeing yourself?
It frees both of us because then she feels like, she got listened to.
Nice.
And, we can then discuss the thing rather than I have to be right, which is one of the things about being a human being is we just have to be right to the end.
Yeah.
We won't let go.
I actually went through a period early on when I was studying metaphysics, world religion, and nutrition at the Lewis Foundation off the coast of Seattle, on Orcas Island. I was there like 7 years from the age of 25 to 32. And there was another woman, Teresa, there that was there as well. And I was in the kitchen because we had a country inn and was a means of support for the foundation. And something came up, and the one of the owners at the time, his name was Star, was in the kitchen along with myself and Teresa and I sort of got into it. And she just kept on saying, "You're wrong." And I would just not admit it.
I got it.
I just wouldn't admit it. And then Star is like fixing himself lunch or something. And this is a triple Aries, very forceful, powerful. And he literally threw me a bolt of energy that just actually knocked me on my butt.
Wow.
And said, "You are absolutely wrong." And you really, so everything from that, pretty much forward, I haven't really had much of a problem admitting that I'm wrong, to other people. The question is, am I willing to admit myself that I'm wrong to myself?
Oh, that's the tough one. And that there's a certain cognitive dissonance. I think you might have heard that term, that there's this sense that what you're hearing doesn't fit your own belief. So
Right.
You've got to stay, true to your belief, and it makes it impossible to learn anything.
Yes.
And it's costly.
Yeah. There's an exercise I do. Basically, sometimes I look at that and realize that there was some sort of vow taken that I took. And that It's a matter of not breaking the vow, but just redoing the vow or letting it go and then readjusting. I actually love that process.
Yeah.
Are we still talking about the 4 pillars?
We are. So last thing about that is that you give up the right to blame anybody else. That blame game we play in organizations.
Yeah.
Us against them. And I worked at a telecommunications company in the marketing department, was doing a great job marketing, and we were selling more than we could deliver. So we were having fights with the team that executes, putting in the cables and all sorts of things. And it just didn't work. Rather than let's all get together and figure out a solution.
I love
cause and all of it.
Yeah.
So those are those two. The third one, if you look, is being committed to something just much bigger than, what satisfies you, what your own concerns are, what you're out for, like making money. Or I'm not knocking money. It's good to make money.
Yeah.
Because it just helps you go wherever you want to go. But at any rate.
And it can help you serve other people if that's where your head's at.
Yeah, but it's never satisfying. Every time I put a big check in the bank, it's great for about 20 minutes, and then that's the end of that celebration. So I've seen being committed to something bigger than my own personal concerns gets me through the tough times. The tough times when it's not going the way I want. And what people want to be around somebody who's up to something. It's not just about cash or looking good or being admired or any of that. And I'm not knocking any of that. It's just that I think when you're in an organization and you're up to something big in life, people want to follow you. So, Gandhi was up to something big. The British are just going to walk out of India. And they did. So can you create for yourself a bigger purpose than just success? Kind of gets you through the valley of tears, when you're experiencing those times. And we all go through that.
I'm in the middle of a big movement. I think we all are, in terms of diversity. And, there's a lot of change going on right now.
A lot. Yes, very much so.
So what else, Barry?
So the last one is one of my favorites, and that is integrity. Oh boy, there's integrity of a person, and then there's integrity of an organization. So if we're talking about, let's say, the integrity of an organization, the ultimate state of what integrity might look like is that the organization, let's start there, is whole and complete and honors what it's presenting out to the public and honors standing by what it's offering its employees and vendors and others who interact with the organization.
Congruency.
Yes. And there are certain expectations that all of us have, the customers have certain expectations that delivery is going to be on time and it's going to be, up to par, and that the products that you're delivering, you stand behind those. They're not going to break the first week when they get them. all of that is a certain integrity, certain wholeness, certain completeness about it. By the way, mostly how we relate to integrity is morality and ethics. You got to do the right things. You got to be a good person. The only problem with that, as an example, is, the terrorists also view integrity for them as doing the right thing for them is killing Americans or damaging people. Well, it doesn't work for everybody. It might work for them. It doesn't work for you and me. So we need to find another way to relate to integrity. And I'm jumping around here, and then
That's
back
fine.
to organization, that you're fulfilling on what's expected of you, of the organization. By the way, that's in your job and how your job's designed. It's in the design of the org chart.
Oh, the organizational chart.
Right. So everybody's in the right positions and they're delivering on their right accountabilities in the organization. They're interacting and communicating, and that's designed in a way that fulfills and gets out into the world exactly what the organization is promising. There's a lot of breakdowns that happen in there. Now, as an individual, we define integrity going beyond morality, doing the right thing, good or bad, beyond following your moral compass, is to the degree that integrity is diminished, the opportunity for performance is diminished. In other words, when you have a bicycle wheel and and it's in perfect condition, you can get the maximum performance out of that bicycle, can't you? Out of that wheel. Now you start taking spokes out of there, and I would have a lot of concern about taking that on a long trip or over some rough roads or anything when one spoke is missing, because it has less integrity to it. The same for a human being. When we're saying integrity has to do with that who you are is the word you give, my promises, my interactions with you on the requests I make of you. To how do you have that be whole, complete, and perfect condition, like a bicycle wheel? And that is, you honor what comes out of your mouth. I give my word to you. And when I know that I'm not going to be able to keep my promise, I'm going to let you know, and as early as I can, that this is not going to happen. I said it was going to happen. Can we sit down and discuss it? Can we go over it? Can we fix it together? Rather than one day you finding out I didn't deliver on what I had promised. You can see organizationally as well as personally, like in your marriage. So
yeah, that's a piece I really love.
Me too. And it's like a foundation of a successful organization and a great life. But we're just a little blind to that. We just don't see there's another aspect to it. And I tell you something, if you and I practice giving our word, making promises, making commitments, and then honoring them when we know we can't, it builds this muscle within you, this strength, I like to call it a rock of Gibraltar, because nobody can mess with you. Literally, anybody's point of view is not a problem for you. You are unshakable when you practice that over a period of time. That's what I've noticed.
That's fantastic.
So the bottom line is it all has to do with having things work in an organization. I call workability, having things work in your relationship. And my whole life, John, is about having things work, because I don't want to mess with being upset a lot. It's stressful. Things break down.
It's not very much fun, is it?
No, not at all. So I think that's another way. Again, it's not the truth. It's something we've heuristically tested, and it seems to be valid, of looking at integrity as distinct from morality and ethics.
I'm gonna put something forth. There was a period where I took myself through an exercise, and I basically said, there is no such thing as truth. It's like along the lines of, you cannot argue another person's reality. So anyway, I started walking that for a while with it in front of me. I wake up in the morning and just see how that applies or not to the rest of the world. And then what it what it did for me is it just flipped me into curiosity.
Oh, very good. And wonderment.
And wonderment. It's like, oh my God. So I typically don't understand, people's bias or, personally myself, I love to walk in another person's moccasins. I want to know, I learned this when I was in Santa Fe, when I lived there most of my adult life, 24 years, because I was a minority. It was mostly Hispanic and American Indian.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think it still is, but it was like, learning another person's, way of being is just delightful to me. It's very, very rich. And it's, there's an artistic part to it as well,
And, what you're observing is their truth is truth for them.
Right.
The way they see it, and even though if it doesn't fit the way you and I see it.
Yeah. Once again, it's like pounding your fist down and going, no, this is the way it is, Yeah. Not for me, yeah. For you, maybe not. Or anybody else. So, Barry, I'm kind of curious. This is your business. I mean, you work with businesses. Can you tell me a story about a business that you've worked with? Or
Yeah, I can tell you one. There was a mining company, my colleague Sharon and I, she's from the East Coast, who also does this kind of work. We're working in Australia. It was a very large mining organization. And the VP of exploration brought us in to work with their exploration department. And they had a $60 million budget. To each of there were regions. So you had New Guinea, you had China, you had South America, you had the US, you had all these various regional offices that would mine, and they were looking for world-class ore bodies. And at that time, this is talking about in the 90s, it was $19,000 to drill a hole. That's expensive. In today's money, that'd probably be triple that amount, right? So they would all fight for their portion of the 62 million.
Wow.
And the meetings, you'd get together every year to see where the money's going, and it would end up being more arguing and fighting and trying to prove, hey, this is our money and we've got the best ones, and da-da-da-da. And they would just, it was just painful. So they'd just give it to somebody and hope for the best. When we went in there in 3 or 4 days, because we had about 40 people we were working with, we were able to transform that group to see things in a whole nother perspective. That is, they created a vision or a context, if you will. They called it 10 in 10, which meant, okay, this is how we've operated in the past. Nothing wrong. We did the best we could. We're now going to take on a whole nother vision. Like Kennedy said, we're going to the moon and returning safely. Remember that?
Yeah.
That was a big vision. That was a context. They created this 10 in 10, 10 world-class ore bodies in 10 years. And the statistics at that time were 1 in 7 if you were lucky. So they took that on, and looking from that vision, from that stand, like you're at the top of the mountain and you did 10 in 10 and you're looking down, how did we get there? They decided, all right, we're going to let go of our agendas and we're going to be one team, and we're going to now separate and look, where is the most likelihood of drilling successfully? Where in the world? And they went here, here, and here. And then they started to send all of their resources to each one of those locations. And they said, they went to the VP and say, we don't need 62 million. We only need like 50 something. Which he went, what? Everybody wants more money. You're asking for less? Yeah, because we're going to do it for less. So they went under budget, took on that project, and within a year, they started to produce one world-class ore body a year discovery.
I can
extraordinary.
Yeah, and now I can see when I wind back to the 4 pillars you were talking about, how all of those were in play, and especially,
very good.
Yeah, I can see how that unfolded. So largely, it's about a larger vision and a unified perspective. It's like
And
together.
honoring your word with each other and being real about it and willing to be responsible. It's just the foundation of workability and miracles, if you will. I don't want to get touchy-feely here, but extraordinary things happen when you're standing on those 4 pillars.
Nice.
Take one pillar away and it's weaker. And that's not the whole story, because what we do at Integritas is free people up. See, we come from the point of view you already are a leader. Now, we need to take away that which is not allowing you to be free to be who you need to be in the moment you need to be. Kind of like Michelangelo, when he looked at that big piece of marble, there was David. Now, how do I chip away so that I get the real David? And look what he did. And he was operating from a huge vision of God and life.
Mm-hmm. All right, Barry, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So I'm sure you've had several, but give me one moment or time in your life that was truly defining and everything changed.
Everything changed?
That was defining for you.
Well, one of them was I gave everything up here in Denver, moved my entire family, just had a baby. Well, let me see. Is that the one I want to give? Yeah, that's one of them. And got to start on a new job, and within a few months, they fired me. And that, oh my God, I just moved my entire family out here. They just didn't need me. They were cutting costs and all of that. So, great. What am I going to do now? And rather than sit and be a victim to it, I sat with it for a few minutes and, enjoyed the victimhood. And then went on, a vision of what do I really want? And I found some extraordinary people to consult with and joined an organization I spent 8 years with, traveling all over the world doing this kind of work. It was just great. And I've had a couple of those, and I'm sure you had in life.
Oh, yeah.
We all get confronted by that.
Yeah, a door shuts, and you're going, wait a minute, why did that door shut? What happened here?
The best thing that happened to you.
Yeah, I love it. It's like I told you earlier about, no, you're wrong. And, that was a defining moment for me, and I've had so many. But that was a real defining moment for me. It changed my character.
And you know what, John? That's what we call crucible events. Like George Lucas had a severe car accident and wrapped his car around a tree when he was young. And it changed his whole life, I understand. And all of us, even the listeners here, have had these divorces, people passing away in our lives, just experiences that define our lives. In terms of who you are, there's an easier way to do it. And that's what our programs offer is we don't want you to go through a crucible life to be a powerful leader. There are other ways you can use language, speaking and listening to transform who you are. And we've cracked the code on that sucker.
Well, we could call this episode An Easier Way to Be You.
An easier way to be you and extraordinary you.
An easier way to be an extraordinary you.
Yeah.
With Barry Berman.
And John, an awesome human being.
Well, thanks, Barry. I'm so glad we got to this conversation. It's been a long time coming, right?
Yeah, we got it done. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I want to really encourage people out there to stop by whathasmyattention.com. That's the podcast site. And you can leave us an audio message. You could actually leave an audio message, a question for Barry, or you can just reach out to us. But really want to encourage people to just give us some feedback and let us know what you thought about that. And if you'd like to actually have Barry come back, just let us know. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
Well, Barry, thanks for being here. I love you.
Thanks.
I do.
Ditto. Thanks for the invitation. I loved it. Love to do it again.
All right. Until next time. Produced by Heard Not Seen Media. Visit imaginepodcasting.com for more information.